1, but I could do 2. But what did you want to do?
What time do you have to leave?
I have a meeting here at 3.
Okay. So
How many questions do you have?
I don't think we have lots.
Okay, why don't we start? Why don't we? You're gonna put it here.
I'll give it to you. Not on display.
Okay.
Just for you to see.
Okay, and then I can, by the time the questions come, I can do like something like this. Yes. That's the mystery. Yes, it's the mystery, which is incarnation and the universe. Exactly. So it's linking it to that's a lot. You find it a lot elsewhere in the scene. They use content like that on purpose. And it's linked. That's when he takes from the Sharia and like it's literally connecting. This is incarnation and the Holy Spirit. So it's amazing. Okay. Good question. Welcome back. While they're getting the questions, because I think there were a few questions, so we may have a little extra time. So I think we went very quickly through we didn't go through the fraction, but I just told you about the fraction just to remind you to look at it and try to find adoption, try to find sanctification, try to find the repentance, try to find the life-giving, and what else is there? Sacrifice. And the union with body and union with spirit. So that's all there. The second thing that you can look at, which is the structure. We don't have time really to go through all the structure, but what confuses people is the structure of the liturgy, the anaphora of Saint Cyril, because it's different than than Basil and Gregory, because that's a West Syrian rite. So if you compare Saint Cyril with Saint Basil, you see that it's almost the same, but the main difference is that the litanies, you have the 7 short litanies, is shifted with the commemoration, is shifted from Basil and moved up. That's the major difference. Everything else does follow. And that's why we were talking about the Sanctus Holy, 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 and how it fits into the rest. When you come to the litanies, there are 14 litanies, so it's double than what you have in Saint Basil, but it also includes everything. So if you took like from Matins, those litanies, the 3 great litanies after the Liturgy of the Word, and the 7, so it's just condensed, and then we have some unique ones I put here in bold that are only in the anaphora of Saint Cyril, including just a special litany for the priest who is offering. It has some very special things for us. So that's what you can. One time we'll take a lesson just on these litanies. Another time we'll talk about just the 3 great litanies. The 3 great litanies are probably some of the oldest prayers we have, and Saint Cyril even cites from those when he's talking to Nestorius. It shows, and he says, as we were taught to pray, shows that he didn't make up the prayer, that he inherited the prayer, and he's citing Nestorius to Nestorius about it. So it shows, like I said, we can teach and explain many things just through the prayers themselves. So it's not a. So we have, of course, question. You have a question? Yes.
One quick question. At one point you made in the first talk, when you mentioned that in the sacrament of marriage, they are united in marriage and in communion. That's why you put the kafa on them. So, يعني, my question is, does this give any advantage to to the husband or the wife if one of them is closer to God or something like that? Like they are united now, so as if they are one body, right? So does this? Yes.
But it's like, you know what they say, you know the yoke?
Yes.
The yoke, what used to be in the, say, or the two horses when they're going together. So when they're yoked together, they have to move in the same pace. Okay. So if one is stronger than the other, even if it's going fast, it's not going to benefit. So it has to slow down, but it helps to carry the other. So definitely just what St. Paul says, one can sanctify the other. That's why they are united together. And sometimes one will always be pushing, but not the whole time. They will still get tired eventually. And then the one who was weaker will have more strength. So while the one is resting, so God does that even within the marriage, and that's why they hold their hands. That's why we put the crowns together. It shows this physically, this union, which they will sanctify one another. So it's not just one that will be carrying everything. You can have someone like Saint Monica. She carried burden for many, many years. But God knows if that, even if that happens, God provides special heavenly grace from above. But usually there's give and take. Just like, say, when there's a funeral, and it affects the whole family. And so you find even when it goes up, someone's very, very strong, the other one is weaker, they strengthen each other. And then after a while, even the strong one will have a difficult day or two or week or what. So the same. So God allows us, and that is the mystery. That's why we're in the same world, so we can increase, or else we would be all independent, even we live in our own caves. See each other once a month, no problem. But that's not how, even in the monastery, they wouldn't let them go to the cave. They live together first until they know, yes, you have the love and patience and virtue. So it's not like you're escaping from the others, but we are going to deepen our relationship with Christ, and it doesn't contradict the family or the so they need each other. They do need each other. How can we deal with individuals who have their own agenda, such as they like to become lead servants or to be a priest? So if a servant is taking certain decisions because he wants to be a priest, I mean, eventually it's going to backfire. It doesn't work in this way. But we are patient with each other. The positions in the service are only to help us for the administrative, like just because we need the administration. But if we start, say, worshiping, we take the letter and this becomes our goal, we lose many, many things. So better to indicate whether there is another servant or to Abuna to help get advice. How can I handle this person specifically? I notice 1, 2, 3, 4. Not that I'm going to complain, but I really want advice. And you can tell Abuna too, if I see something, if something I see is not right, and I'm not looking at it properly, please correct me. So if I offer that, because if I keep silent, in my mind will increase more and more, and I'll convince myself, and maybe my assessment is not correct. But if there is a problem, then chances are I'm not the only servant who is suffering, and it needs to be corrected. So if I have a role to help in the correction, good. If I don't have a role, I'm going to say, don't worry about it. Just keep in your service. We'll take care of it. Then I know I'm not going to bring it up again. I don't have to talk to another servant. I just do my work. But if Abuna delegates me to do something, then okay, I will do that. So how to be faithful, and that's the blessing of being a servant without, say, big title. Because when you get the big title, you get the big problems. Which is fine. They say some good things one day, and then they say some things the other day. So always with the responsibility is burden. So we don't take, like no one receives honor to himself, but the honor should be to Christ. So if there's something good that I do, I offer to Christ, and something weakness, I offer also to God to help to correct and adjust me. Because if I don't, it's eventually I'm going to say, the service, I can't do it anymore. You take it. And we see it, unfortunately, too common now. But that's the result of taking things that don't belong to me. So I give all to Christ. I would like to suggest for the Koshi curriculum more optional, less obligatory hymns memorization. It was too much for the servants and kids. Especially for small churches that end up with one or two servant or 2 or 3 kids. We actually have a meeting after this for Koji, so we can definitely look and see what is optional or for the hymns and for the memorization. And it's a challenge for us because we have many different churches in the diocese and many different expectations. And to be honest, how to meet all of them, it's a challenge, but every year we hope to try to get this, and we depend on your feedback and even specific feedback. Like say this section we didn't like particular, or this activity we really enjoyed. So sometimes we get the general feedback, but even the more specific, we do look at it. I have Sony and many, they look at it more and they do it. But even we do our best because there's, like I said, so much going on in the summer. By the time we finish, I don't even remember the topic of the last year. But the more specific we'll benefit from. Calendar of Sunday school curriculum does not consider the seasonal lesson. Is it possible to adjust it, such as important feasts that are not forgotten? Thank you. Yes, so actually if you look, I didn't bring, did you have it with you? The big, we gave it to the priests. You have one? What's it, I just want to show them to show that it exists. And, okay. I want to show you what it looks like. So we put all the lessons for all the grades together so that the servant will know if I'm teaching 2nd, 3rd grade, how does this lesson fit between what happened in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the module, and then also how does it fit in the year. So that way I have the understanding of what are we trying to accomplish, and if there's something missing or something repeating, you can also see it. So say for example they took Saint Damiana in 2nd grade and they take it in 5th grade. I don't know, I'm just giving you an example. So then you can see, we remind them, do you remember in 2nd grade when you took 1, 2, 3? No, we don't remember. Okay, let's quick review, and then we build on that for a reason. You might find that you want to tell them the story of Saint Maurice, and it's not there. Actually, it is, but I'm giving an example. Or one saint, you see, I want to know if they took this story yet. So it might be helpful for the lesson, so you'll be able to have that perspective. When it comes to the seasonal lessons, we put them at the bottom, and they are optional because sometimes the Feast of Transfiguration will come on a Sunday. This year came on a Monday. So you might, if it comes on a Sunday, you should mention this. And there are some churches, say for example for the Great Fast, they do the Sunday Gospels. And other churches, they do it certain years only. So the options, they are there, and they can be used for Saturday, they can be used for Friday, they can be used for Sunday school. But we put the major feasts they are built in, but you need to look for it under the seasonal options. We actually ended up, originally we said we'd only do 9 months, and then the 3 months for summer curriculum. And then we said, okay, we have the seasonal. And then people said, well, we also need some practical, some spiritual. We added a few. We actually have much more lessons per year. We don't know how to fit them in, but because of all the activities and events, there's a way, I'm sure we will be able to do that. Or if you have, say, third and fourth, they do something 1 year for the class, and then in the next year they can adjust. But those seasonal lessons should be there, and if there is, like I said, a feast or occasion that's not, let us know, and we can see how to incorporate it better.
So is there a digital
There is, but when we send it, because it's very, very large, you're not going to be able to read it. So it is, I don't think is it in the app? I don't think so, because you won't, when we try to look at it, it's even if your eyes are good, the file is not going to be clear. You won't be able to see it. So that's why we printed it very large, and we gave one per church. But if you need more, we can order them, and some servants would like to have it in the classroom. So it will be helpful. The high schoolers always asking about the bread and wine turned to the real body and blood. It is hard to tell them it is real, but not physically real. How can we answer that in a simple way for them to understand? So we do say, it is real body, it is real blood. And that's why the Lord said, this is my truth. When we go through John chapter 6, actually in the class that we were having last week, we spent maybe an hour on St. Cyril's commentary just on John chapter 6. And it is one of the most important chapters. When he talks about Eucharist, he goes through this like line by line, phrase by phrase. If there's a lot of Protestants who don't believe that it's true body, true blood, all you have to do is read John chapter 6 with them and stop and pause and say, don't you believe this or not? And at the end of the story, when the Lord said many people left because they couldn't accept what he was saying. And so we asked the same thing. Do you want to leave too? But the Lord is saying this, and he doesn't compromise, and he told the disciples the same question. And St. Peter said, no, we're not going to, this. We came for this. We know this is the salvation. So even for the high school, they can understand, junior high, they can understand. Maybe with the elementary, we tell them that we're taking Christ, and we are united with him. But they hear it. They say true body, precious blood, holy body. Like, so we tell them, and he said, this is my flesh indeed. So we emphasize this, but it is in the form for us of bread and wine, so that we don't have these challenges. It will be hard for us to eat, hard for us to chew. God gave in this mystery in a way that's very easy, and the wine is sweet, and the kids eat it. Like it's very easy to accept. The concept is not easy to accept, so that's why we work here, and even some people mystically, they had different experience that emphasized how this is true body and true blood. Not every time, sometime, just so we don't forget the truth of the mystery. How to remain both humble and assertive, especially at work. If you're kind, you get eaten alive. Hopefully this is in work and not in the church. Sometimes it happens in all places. But yes, how to be kind and firm. And this is what the saints and the martyrs taught us. There were some saints that were very tough in everything, like we have St. George, very tough. And there are others that even in their humility, they were able to trample Satan, especially in their humility. I was telling them the story of how one of the nuns, elder nuns in Abu Sufyan, she was in her 90s. After the Tasbih, she was walking, and she found, I think in the garden, they had a tree, and they had Satan, I think, was tied in the tree. He couldn't move. So she was very kind. Nun, she said, what happened to you? She said, you tied me up. She said, we didn't do anything. What do you mean? Like, when did that happen? And his garments were all ripped. He said, no, because of your prayers, because of your humility, you're always saying, forgive me, and humbling yourself, I can't move. I'm tied and weakened by this humility. So it was a lesson, of course, for the nuns and for all of the nuns, how that this does work. Yes, do we get accused, falsely accused? We say, I did not do this, right? So you can we state the truth once and twice. And then when Christ knew, after he became silent, so he defended himself, and in very clear detail. But then when he knew that they were going to, he already knew, they were going to persecute and attack regardless of what is said, he remained silent and he accepted wrong. How to accept wrong is not, but when they asked, he answered. So the same. But he wasn't enraged. It didn't start accusing and attacking, but he was very direct and very clear and not afraid, not ashamed. So this is the work. When it starts to affect me inside too much, then I know I need to make some adjustment. I need to pray for God's grace to give me strength and to give me wisdom and discernment. So we are always, even you can say very predictable in one sense. The truth is, I had one of the ladies, I was visiting in Egypt, and she said she had a boss who was working in the bank, always asking her to do something wrong, like illegal. And her boss was not Christian. She was Christian. She said, I can't do this. Once and twice. And she said, if you don't do this, I will fire you. She said, you hired me because I'm honest. And so I can't do this. You can ask one of the other people to do it, but why are you asking me? So she said, sorry, I can't do this. She said, eventually I was fired. So she said, I took it. I said, you didn't get upset? She said, no, I use this time. The church is next to me. I go to the church every day. I take my children, I pray, and ask God what's needed. He knows that the expenses they were running out of money. So then she said, thank God I visited her at this time. And she said, God gave me a more paying job, less hours next to the church. So I can continue to go to the church, and I don't have less money, and I enjoyed she said, but after a long time, God rewarded. And I think she was working with Christians, like completely different. So instead of it being as I got punished, or I didn't get what I deserve, and see, like I focus on what they are attacking me with, she saw how God was working with her step by step after. So we don't judge in the time. After the fact, now I know what God was doing and able to see this. But we want to be steadfast. It's not to compromise in any of the. What is theosis in a simple way? How do we understand it differently from the Eastern Orthodox? So that's what I was trying to explain about Saint Cyril as the life of sanctification, becoming holy and living heavenly life. And this is the sanctification, what Saint Cyril says, in body and spirit, so even physically, like we are united. It changes us, changes the way we think, the way we love, the virtue, and it's growing in the knowledge of the Lord. How is it different from the Eastern? There's a little bit of a deviation when it comes to Maximus the Confessor and the Hesychast movement. They're talking more about prayer, Jesus' prayer, about silence, about seeing the divine light, the uncreated light. It's not wrong. They're not wrong things, but it's one way where we experience the divine. But it's only one way. And I think in the Oriental, it's the broader perspective. Just like, for example, in the holiness in the Catholic Church, at one point they said, okay, the holy person is the one who has stigmata, and they have blood, and it's not in our tradition. So if that was the only saint, then we say, well, then we don't have saints in our tradition. That's not true. And there were some fakes, like even in that time, people they say, oh, we saw the uncreated light and it wasn't light. I remember one of the metropolitans was saying when he was a monk, he decided, because he spoke English, and the prayers were all in Greek. He was in Manathos. So he said, I was too tired, so I didn't go to the service. He was a new monk. He says, maybe if I go, I can pray more fervent if I'm by myself. So he stayed in his cell. It was very cold. And so he said he started praying the Jesus prayer in his cell instead of the group. And then he said, I was getting tired. So I said, let me sit down and I can pray the Jesus prayer better. So he sat down, prayed the Jesus prayer. And then he said, no, maybe I lie down. And I pray the Jesus prayer, it'd be more. Anyways, he started doing this. So he said, fell asleep while I'm praying the Jesus prayer. And then he said, I saw a light. So he said, at first I thought it was the uncreated light. And then I found it's a little bit green and some red. So he said, it's different than they explained to us. And then he said, I started to smell something that wasn't. So he realized he put a heater and the heater caught fire. And so that woke him up. But the idea behind it is like the uncreated light is not the only way to experience holiness. And sometimes it can be a different type of light. So it's not limited. The life of sanctification is not limited in one way. There's much bigger. The next question will take probably a conference. Please explain the difference between Miaphysite and Monophysite. Monophysite is one nature, but one absolute nature. So they would accuse us of being Monophysites, meaning we only accept that Christ has the divine nature and not the human nature. And so, of course, no. When we were saying one nature, would mean that the two are united in one, without confusion, without meaning, without division, and that we only understand them in theory, like rationally. We mentally can distinguish, but actually there's no separation between the two. And so Miaphysite preserves this union, but we know that the two realities, right? He is Son of God, and he took flesh, made one with his own, so he's fully man, and has all the characteristics of humanity without sin. So this is the Miaphysite. For more, we do have a course actually on Chalcedon. It may help. What age should you introduce the kids to the gay, lesbian, transgender terminology? If you asked me this question 5-10 years ago, I would have said, junior high, high school. Now it's in elementary school, so we have to be preemptive and we have to be very cautious. Some kids have, even in junior high, if they're homeschooled or they have very, like the parents are watching so they may not even be exposed. When we had in the curriculum last year, some of the kids were complaining because they were in high school, they didn't know. Which is good and not so good because they may not know how to react. So that's why we said it's better for us to explain it, and if they learn from the church best, much, much better. Because you have an edge. If you are the second, if you come late to the game and said they already have, so we can say, they say 1, 2, but we have to be more comprehensive. They say 1, 2, 3, 4, but the reality is this. And if they come and say this, we say 1, 2. So we have to do more work in order to correct. And then we also have to ask them, does that make sense? Do you have any questions? Is there anything else that I missed? And then if there is, we can take them and come back, so we prepare very, very well. Because what's going to happen in the school is not that, it's very superficial. It's just they keep repeating, and that's the ideology. But with the simple questions, we can even ask them, we used to do this when we deal with them, how to be prepared to ask the question, even if the teacher or if the student has something, we prepare them, ask this question. Because it is not coherent. Like when they say how to be tolerant and liberal and everything, so how come you're not tolerant with our perspective? Why is only this perspective correct? And doesn't this harm people as well as the rest? Or what about someone who was transgender and they go back? Do you accept that too or no? And if no, why? Because technically, if I allow it, or if I give the kids the choice, how do I know when the choice is the final choice and they won't change their mind? There's no answer. Like these simple questions. It's not. The freedom is not there. And the pressure, you say, is the choice with pressure or without pressure. Should be without pressure. So why are you putting pressure on us or on them? It's not consistent. It's an agenda. They feel that this is right and they'll push it no matter what. And if there's definitely a lot of harm being done to the children on both sides, I mean, like, if they're pushing the agenda, the people who accept, the people who don't accept, they're harmed by it. So what's the solution? There's no solution. We're just going to continue with the agenda. And what is the evaluation like in the class when you do this teaching? Do you evaluate how effective you were or not? It's many, many questions. We should be prepared to ask the questions in a way that really they should be prepared to answer, not the opposite. And when we ask this, usually at least some of the people will listen, and some of they have to be convincing, because they say our way, and we say we are convinced with our way, and we're not convinced with what you say. So convince us. And if they're prepared to ask the right question, they won't be able to. And many of the teachers themselves are not convinced. So better you say, okay, can we move to the next subject, because this one is not proven. How to deal with young people who do not listen to their parents during adolescence? Should we leave the experience to them? I don't know which experience, but what happens is we, as mentioned in the epistle today, convince, rebuke, exhort. This was the work for the bishop, the priest, and in the parents to some extent, how that we convince, and we should be convincing. Like I said, when we say don't do so and so, even God, when he put the commandments, he explained. Not everything was explained depending on their age, but there is answer why for this. Rebuke is when they go astray. There's accountability, and the parent, the servant, the priest, we give accountability. So if they did something wrong, we don't just leave it without correction. We come back, just like even in the work. If someone does a mistake and you leave it, it's going to definitely repeat, not just by the person, but maybe everyone else. So there has to be accountability. And exhort means to encourage the good that is there. And even if, say, they're not doing something they should be doing, whether it's prayer, whether it's working hard, whatever it is. So I exhort them in those good things that I want to see. I know one of the servants the other day, they were praising the younger for doing things that they don't do. They even tell me that we don't do those things. But by praising them in front, say, of us, it encouraged them that we want to be doing those things. So we want to earn this praise in a sense, so we're going to work harder. We got the lesson. She was saying, yeah, I got the lesson. I know that I have to be doing this, but right now I'm not doing this. So it's a nice way to, the exhortation, to do that. Is it correct to mention body and blood for communion for very young kids? Like I mentioned, we say true body and true blood, and then usually I've seen like mothers explain that this is Jesus. Take this because it's Jesus. Like they're not flesh, and they're not focused on flesh, right? Because they don't understand the concept. But take his body, drink his blood, but take Jesus. So for the very, very young age. And then when they start to, some kids can accept, like the young ages now impress me, what we weren't able to do, now they can accept many concepts better than before. So when they start asking, how is this? Then I start giving more and more detail until they can fully accept it. So they know that Christ is on the cross, and they know that the Last Supper. So I point to the Last Supper, right? He said, eat this bread, it's my body. But he didn't die yet. So the kid who understands will ask those questions, wait a second, he didn't die yet. Yes, it's in a mystery, but he gave them his body, and they took it. So when they took it, they were filled with life, and we take the same thing. But it doesn't hurt him when we eat, right? And the blood, it doesn't taste like blood. Yeah, it tastes sweet. So it should be easy to comprehend those things. Easier. What is something you advise the youth to do in their service? I think this is in the servant meeting. We get a lot of a lot of advices, but one of the things that I would say is sometimes lacking is that of discipleship, because our church is the church of discipleship, and that is the core of how many of the saints became saints. And so when we have service without discipleship, is a recipe for problems, disaster come. So you can have good, very active servants, but then you say, well, where did they go? And usually the key is that discipleship, and how that I humble myself in the service, whether to Abuna or to the elder servants, and I learn from them. Just like St. Basil says, to take the pollen, the bee, from every flower. So he or she knows how to really absorb those gifts from the elder servants. And they used to warn us, one of Shoi used to always say, be careful even in the discipleship or when you are discipling, because your virtues pass. Yes, you can absorb them from your the one whom you're discipled by, but also the weaknesses inadvertently. So if I'm lazy, it can. If I'm inconsistent, it can. Whatever, and etc. etc. So we want to be cautious in this. How to live, we balance life between life and spirituality. The two are together. Like life is spiritual, right? So it's not, we don't try to divide, but we have times where we are focused maybe so much, yes, in the church, like you're here Saturday and then tomorrow, and so we have a condensed portion. But at the same time, you're going to go and do a lot of things that you need to do so that the life will continue, whether it's with the kids, whether it's with the house. So we are doing both. The important thing is that when we're doing those tasks, we don't lose sight of the spiritual, or we do them in a spiritual way. I know Abuna Bikhail Ibrahim, when he was working, he had a difficult job. He was working mostly with non-Christians. So he would, before he sit down, he does the sign of the cross. Before he open any file, he does the sign of the cross. Before he answer the phone, he does the sign of the cross. And one of the workers, he was so bothered by this. His boss, he complained to the boss. So his boss told him, you're not allowed to do this. Don't do the sign of the cross anymore. So he said, okay, if it's bothering you. That night, he got a call from his boss saying, I need you to come right now to his house. So he went to his house. He said, since I told you this, I've been in pain all night. My stomach, I don't know what it is, so I need you to pray for me. So he said, okay, I'm going to do the sign of the cross. he said, do the sign of the cross. So he prayed on the water. He wasn't a priest. He did his sign of the cross on the water, and I think he did a psalm. He said, in a prayer, he said, say the prayer after me. He said, okay. He drank, he was fine afterwards. So then he said, okay, do the sign of the cross anytime. But an example of how, like, yes, he got attacked for it, but God has his way with us. So don't pray for something happen to your brother, the people who attack you, but how that we live everything they know that you are different. We were in Switzerland with a group, and we were in one of the hotels, and we were leaving. So when we were in breakfast, one of the people came to us and said, I need to know which group this is. So we told him it's Coptic Church. She said, what city are you in? So we explained it. And so we were asking why. He said, no, I saw the way that you love each other, and that you are joyful, and that you are peaceful. And he said, there's something different I need to know. And he was Christian, but he said, no, this is something unique. So the Christians, when you go, I know you're shining in your work, and you're a good model, so they know there's something different. And so that's why we're in the work. So when the challenges come, and they see you, how you deal with the challenges. You're not afraid, you don't get angry. Maybe your face changes for a little bit. But afterwards, God gives you the wisdom and the blessing how to. And they said, what did you do? I said, I work. But we know there's prayer mixed with work, not just the two. And so God works with his servants, and we get special grace from those interactions. How are we going to finish? I think I'm halfway. You have something else after? Aren't we supposed? Okay. We have a free time? Okay. What is the best thing to do with kids that are the most difficult to control or deal with? This needs special servants, special talented servants, and they probably know better. Like, you can probably learn this from each other. Like, I remember when we were young, we had those servants that are trained, very talented. They know how to bring out the good in those children, whether they give them a task, whether they joke with them, whether they discipline them harsh, because it's a mix. It depends on the child, and so I understand why they're acting up. Because if I don't understand why, because it could be that the lesson is not really, either they know it already, or it's too long, or it's not a good lesson. I don't like this. And I prepared so much, so I'm really invested, but at the same time, there's a disconnect. So if there's something like that, then I have to acknowledge but if there's something wrong with the child, I can also identify, and so that needs time. Either it's after or during, but I don't let it go, because if I let it go and ignore it, it's not going to go away, and it's actually going to increase. So the good shepherd knows how to deal with but he knows what's wrong with every sheep. One time I was serving in high school, and I was asking him, give me advice, and so he said, by the way, every one of them has major problems. I said, no, they're good, they're smiling, and they're happy. He said, no, look more careful. So in the visits and in the talk, I realized there was a lot of things I completely did not see. Because just serving, at the time I was in law school, but if we serve in superficial, we won't see what's under. But when the servant knows what's under, then we know him. And many times, just that in that visitation, it builds a closer bond. Not only they will be quiet and listening, they're going to quiet the other. Like when there's love, they'll be, take it. Because sometimes that's all that's needed. The one of them to help you, they're your assistant for this.
Same as a continuation of this, what if it becomes a burden on the servant? That it's hindering the servant to continue serving
Why?
that child. It's just becoming a heavy burden on the servant.
Their problem or my?
The child that you're struggling with is becoming a really heavy burden on the servant.
Oh, then there's something wrong. Because there's something wrong. It can be, one, if I'm carrying something that doesn't belong to me. Meaning, sometimes what's burdening them is, like, say, sin, right? So they need confession. So that, there's a mystery of confession, which takes, God gives blessing to the priest to be able to endure. Even the psychologists, when they have to go to therapy regularly when they have very serious cases, because it affects them. Thank God with the clergy, because it's a mystery, the Holy Spirit helps us, and sometimes even the details we don't remember. So if it's a sin, that needs special attention. But if it's not a sin and it's maybe psychological, a family problem that's much more endearing, and maybe I'm not trained or experienced or able to deal with it, then I need some help. So one will help to see who can help with this. Because the details are not going to help me if I don't know. I was talking to one of the kids the other day, and she was trying to counsel her friend, but they both have the same problem, like whether it's depression or suicide. So it can only help so much. They really need someone outside, and how to put the proper boundaries is necessary. And that's the second. So if there's another servant that can help, or even I can deal with the problem, but I'm taking it too much. So I need help how to make those internal boundaries. And that's also a prayer where God helps and gives the grace, so that I'm not trying to solve the problem, but I give God the place to solve the problem. So I know how to even it's not easy to do, especially if you are very kind, and any problem you feel, the problem of the people in front of you. So how to put that internal, it's like the strength of the heart, so that it's maintained, doesn't spill over, it doesn't or else it's going to be difficult. And then also the approach, like sometimes we'll go, one of the priests told me in said in some of the family problems when he was a new priest, so he learned from Bunuk Shoy, he said they would go to the monastery like almost once a month for a couple of days. And he said, we would take these, put on the altar, and by the time we come back, many of them were sold. I mean, we can go in and meeting, and sometimes we're meeting and it makes it worse because what they were not talking about, now they're so some things, yes, you need to talk about, but sometimes the talking is actually more hurtful, and the prayer kind of solves. So, you asked the hard questions.
In the same subject,
Yes.
there's a reward or punishment. This is really about, like, for now, they say, everyone's just good, can you differentiate between this person just did, this kid just did something good, so he can be rewarded, or this kid was not good, that needs to be punished. So this is a concept in the old days, so I don't know what now.
So there are different techniques. I don't think there's a problem for rewarding and for punishing when the principle is set very clear from the beginning. So say, for example, if I said, yes, if you come late, you get -1 point, whatever it is. If I set that rule and I don't apply it, that's where the problem. Or because, right. So how to be consistent and also how to be fair. So if I put a principle, it should be clear. Like, I don't just give random because I like here. And then someone else, he does the same good thing and doesn't. So that consistency is a problem. And also the reward, we're trying to look for the spiritual reward. So I know sometimes we would give candy as the reward. Then they said, no, we'll give crosses. And they said icons. And then books. But how am I looking to see what is the valuable thing that they really need? And I may give it to them first. And then afterwards, there may be additional things, like I forgot, we used to do this we used to have special rewards, say when they ask questions, because we want them to answer questions. But at the same time, they don't leave without nothing. Like, so we also have to give certain things just to feel that there is. So how to balance those things? It needs some care. And some attention. But I think for us to engage them, especially for the young ages, it does take effort. And to say, well, is this the best way or not? Okay. Why don't we dip the body into the blood? In the liturgy, the Lord never said we had to drink from the same spoon. What they used to do, actually what the Lord said is, take this is my body, and then he said, take this is my blood. So we know he didn't mix and he didn't dip like you find in the other churches, and that's why we're one of the few churches in the world that do it separate. And there were some churches at one point, because they had plagues or whatever, they stopped giving the body and they just gave the blood, and then there's some vice versa, they just gave the body and just gave the blood and not the body. But thank God our church didn't change. What happened is that the spoon originally, the mystere, wasn't there. So they would drink from the cup and wipe the cup, and if you look in the Catholic Church, they still do that. But in the Eastern Orthodox Church, they felt it helpful because they started to give the body and blood together. But if you look, like when I talk about in the medical sense, like we would have all had many different sicknesses without the mystery, so there's special grace, and we take it by faith. But if someone thinks about it too much, that's a problem. Like they either OCD or something. And it's very hard for them to accept this. It doesn't matter. Like it's going to be. And there's some people, they never thought about it. It wasn't a problem because we're focused. We want to focus on the. In COVID, it's understandable. We had a big discussion, and then we had churches. We had a deacon. He had COVID. He was giving communion. He gave communion to all the people, the blood, and Abuna drank from him after, and nobody got. It affected him, but nobody had, and it was severe. Unfortunately, he passed away, the deacon, after. But nobody, like even Abuna was saying, and he wasn't wearing a mask, but the reality is there. The reality is, And so we don't hear those stories. We only hear, the one time I was sitting next to one time there was a liturgy, and they found out after that one of the deacons had COVID. So a whole group of the deacons got COVID. So then I asked them, well, what happened? What happened? So they were, I think there were some in the sanctuary and some here. But not all of the deacons got COVID. So when I was investigating, I found out. So all the people in the church, the people who went in the church and left didn't get COVID. They went out and ate afterwards, and the people who ate together, they got COVID. But in their mind, they thought, oh, we got it from the church. But then actually, it wasn't true. So there's a special grace, and of course, ours, and they're close in proximity to eating. I mean, we understand it now, but you have to look at it from all directions to get the proper. Okay, the liturgy is usually 2.5 hours. I don't know, usually Pope Kyrillos used to have much shorter Mass. Why is an hour and a half not sufficient and would make it more digestible to both children and adults? There is many difference of opinion. It's even like, for example, 2 people can walk, and one can walk much faster than the other, right? So we try to accommodate, like I used the example before of how that we are reasonable, and we don't do extensions that are unnatural extensions. Sometimes I attend liturgy and we just want to make it longer. and we know those problems and we try to work with those problems. And then there's other people and I've been in them too, we just want to make it short, like we need to rush. I was in a liturgy recently, and from the beginning, we have to finish this up, we have to finish, because it's an early liturgy. And they were rushing so much, we finished half an hour early, and then we had to apologize, we finished early. But the problem is when we put the time over the worship, that's the problem. Yes, the worship has to be, but if we really are worshiping, we lose, it's outside of time. And God does manage the time. Like many times, I remember one of the priests told me, he said, I wanted just to pray and forget the time, so we took our time in everything. We had to found out that we finished the same time, or if it was a little early. So yes, we need to be reasonable, but we have to put the focus on that we are really praying, all the ages. And if it's something that's burdensome, yes, it doesn't fit, because there are some hymns, and sometimes the sermon. Like, we have to be very calculated and very honest with what we are doing. Because sometimes, I want to say this long hymn, I'll be like, no, because I see right now it's not working. It's not going to work. And then maybe during the week, we have them say to him, these people it's no problem. And we are early, or I'll even start early, they'll get upset. I'll start a little bit early because we want to add this. I used to pray with the priest, talk about timing by the minute. So he would tell me Saturday night, please say come 15 minutes earlier and start matins. He said, because the gospel tomorrow is longer and the sermon is going to be a little longer, so we can finish in the same time for communion. We need a little bit more time and we don't want to rush. And and sometimes we get a deacon that comes in the middle and thinks we have extra time, so he adds a hymn and a bunawid. But how that we are very intentional, and it's normal. Like if we know what we're doing, but if it's haphazard, we don't know when we started, we don't know when we finish, we don't know what happened in the middle, and then the kids are going crazy. But you'll notice even with the children that we are praying for them to be able to focus, and we teach the parents how to prepare the children so that when they come to the church, what's going to happen. And if they act up, what's going to happen? Because not always the punishment is to leave the church. Because some of the kids, the infants, they know that if they scream, they leave, so they scream, so they can leave. And in that case, to correct them, no, we're staying right here, we're not moving. And the mother is like, there's nothing. If the mother knows how, it's not going to happen again that way. Like, you're not going to, that's not the escape. So we're going to enjoy, and then afterwards they know. They know what's going to happen after the liturgy, and then there's going to be consequences. So how that we manage, it's not easy. Like I feel for the mothers because they bear most of this burden, and it needs a lot of wisdom and discernment and the patience of the people around them. Because they have to know when to leave, and then when they leave, what happens, and when to bring them back. So that's not easy. So if we're able to help the children, we can do that. And the looks. I know people change churches because of the looks. So we need to be. It needs like help. We need to help each other, and they know. And there's also the other extreme where they're oblivious, like as if nothing is happening, and everyone lost focus, and it doesn't matter. In that case, we have to make very clear lines, because the kids don't know the difference between the church and the playground. Like they assumed, because there's no rules, that this is the playground, like as if they're outside. And they will teach each other, not only in the family, the other children. That's when we have to be actually very firm and say, no, there's something off. In Bible study, I noticed the Orthodox Study Bible and New King James are not 100% the same. Example is Proverbs 19:13. Which version should we study with the kids? Excellent question. Orthodox Study Bible without any hesitation, because there's a difference between Septuagint, the Greek version, and the Hebrew version. That's why we started to use the Orthodox Study Bible. It's not perfect in everything, but it's much, much, much better. That's what the Coptic is based on. That's the Greek. That's why it's called the Orthodox Study Bible. Even the New King James in the New Testament is not the best. It's not perfect, but it's the best that we have right now, and that's why it was chosen since we came in 69. But it's not perfect, so there's a lot of challenges. And so the servant, we try to present this Orthodox Study Bible at young age, and we used to give them as gifts to the kids. We used to have it fixed so that when they graduate high school, they get their own Bible, or sometimes they would do junior high and then high school Tazbah book, and then Agbeya, but so it's fixed. So we had a plan so that by the time they do start reading, they have their own Bible, and they have it signed by Abuna or by the servant, and have a message, and it stays for them for their life. Sometimes even in college we'll get them a Bible cover. So we were trying to be consistent so that there's no excuse. And when we come to visit them at home, we say, okay, where's your Bible? And we're able to see, okay, did they read in the New Testament? Did they read in the Old Testament? Did they underline? Did they have notes? Or is it they can't find it? So this is part of the service to follow up in the scripture. And they say, no, on the phone, no, we need the Bible. Because when you read at home, we try not to use the as much as we can. Maybe when they're traveling, okay, but that relationship with the Bible, I don't think changed with the history, like with the technology. It's actually very beneficial, but it's not this question, but another question. Sometimes I find myself not focused on liturgy. Any advice? All of us sometimes find ourselves like this, but the best thing is that the way we start the liturgy. So just like in the Agbeya, you say the way that you start the Agbeya, from Our Father and Thanksgiving prayer. So if we are focused then and we prepared ourselves, it's a different experience. But even if we didn't prepare and we are thinking about all the problems and decisions, or Sunday school, or someone said or did something, even we get distracted, the best way is to, in that moment, to offer to the Lord. So we transform this issue, this distraction, into prayer. And then wherever Abuna is at that point, or the deacons are at that point, we put 100% focus. That helps to at least capture something. And the silent prayers, the private prayers, are linked with what's happening in the liturgy. So he's saying, pray for the one only Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. So I'm praying for the unity of the Church, for the schisms, for the Church here, how it's united with in Egypt and the other churches. I'm praying for the unity of the servants. I'm praying for what I'm told to pray for. So the deacon is supposed to help us, remind us, by the way, the priest has just said this. So if it's, sometimes they skip the deacon responses, which is fine, I'm paying attention, I know what is supposed to be there. I know what I'm supposed to pray for. And the deacon is praying it as well, silently, I'm sure. So this is the word. Can the diocese curriculum be updated to include more social topics for junior high and high school as it connects more to this age group? Yes, what we are doing for high school, originally we had tried to finish at 8th grade. And then we had requests, no, we need 9th and 10th grade. So we added some lessons. And then we said, no, we need 11 and 12. So we added those lessons in those older grades. And what we are trying to have is a bank of different lessons, the social, so it could be used whether in Sunday school or in youth meeting. And it does need some work, but we'll see. We got a little delayed from Koshi and everything else, so we'll try. What we're actually thinking to do later is that we're going to take some of the old spiritual competition material, some of it, and we'll be able to incorporate them for other lessons in the high school so that they can benefit from those. Next servant's prep exam. When will it be, and will be new style? Yes, there'll be new style. When, I do not know. We have been, every time we come to make one change, it turns out that we need another change. It's like when you have an American car after a few years, it tends to be one problem after the next. But I think, at least as of this week, I believe we have a new solution for the existing problems, and we are testing it out. It should be next week. So hopefully, once we have that, we'll make the announcement. That's for the exam. In terms of the material, we were doing new curriculum for all of the modules, and then we found that a couple of them will probably stay the same, and about 4 to 5 will be changed. And so they've already changed 2 of them, and we are working on the remaining 2 to 3. And once they're finished, we will make an announcement and give a couple months so that the exam won't be, because originally we're going to change both together. And so God willing, the original plan is that those new curriculum will be released in January. So then people are going to be concerned, because if they were studying the old material, what's going to happen? And then we are going to have discussion, because even the new material will be released in January. We're going to give some time for the old exams and then shift over to the new exam. So there's no revolts after that makes sense? Or yes. And then God willing, what we're trying to do, that the exams will be online, but we are trying to make sure the technology works so that they can proctor it properly. And that's why there's a delay, because there's a lot of it was like a Abuna Daniel answer. He used to do open book, but it doesn't help. But we'll see. What was happening was already open book. That's what we're trying to avoid. Trying to make sure they know what they are doing. If a priest is using a servant to do something non-appropriate to the other priest under the same name of obedience, what should the servant do? The servant should pray and fast and say, you are stuck. And so it needs the help. It needs a little bit more help. Sometimes we do this as servants, right? And sometimes the parents do the same thing with the kids. So when one parent is using one child to get to the other parent, we bring in Abuna to try to fix what's going on. If it's happening between the priests, it's a very delicate situation, and then we need help. So hopefully to talk to the one priest and apologize and say, this is very difficult for me, please forgive me, but I can't do 1, 2, or 3. And you deal with whatever consequence. It shouldn't be, but at least it's a warning, right? But if I fulfill and do whatever, even because it says obey your parents in the Lord. So if it's outside of the Lord, just like I told you the example of the girl with her lady with her boss, she said, I can't do this. So it's okay to say, I can't do it, forgive me, I'm disobedient, I will confess, but I don't have, I can't do what you're asking, it's too hard for me. And I feel like there's a problem between whatever, but you hint, like you're not going to blame. You say, I'm not comfortable. I'm weak for this. Whatever you say, you're honest, but you say we don't want to be used to make a problem worse, but we are supposed to be peacemakers. So how we can resolve it, and if you're very wise, what you'll do is, when two people are arguing, instead of making things worse, because there are some people who'd be like, oh, do you know what they did now? Do you know what they said? I saw this. And we make the problem, there's some people, they love doing it. But we as servants of God, we're the opposite. When we know there's tension between two people, we say, but he said all these good things. And I try to get the first person, I say, so-and-so did this. And they may say two things negative and one thing positive. I want them to say something positive about the other person. So I go to the other person, they said, but so-and-so said 1, 2, and 3, I was very happy. And I learned from him how to see this virtue in you. I build on whatever there's positive, to try to change the perspective. It may or may not work the first time, but if I'm good at this, like if I'm able to, I may be able to change the perspective of both. To try to see how we're working together, living together, and even show, like they used to say in the monastery when two monks are fighting, which sometimes happens too. They say, but they left their parents, they came here, who are brothers, we have no one else. Like, after this, because the devil used to attack in the church, in the monastery, in the house, everywhere. So when we focus on Christ and we say we're all struggling, we're all trying to live holy life, and we make many mistakes, nobody's perfect, but let's not fight with each other. We need to fight together against evil for the glory of God. And eventually, even if you are not successful, God will use for his kingdom. Or else we'll all be fighting with each other, and God have mercy on the church. He will come early so that for his church. Okay, I think this is enough. Pick one last. So some of these are repeated anyways. There's a question for the spiritual competition coming out late. We're trying, and I think we have a solution for some of the material to come out January. That's our goal. But even if it comes in January, we're going to take 2-3 months to work on different things so that the release is early enough. But again, some people say no, it's too early. But we will find the solution. So are we close to reconciliation with the Eastern Orthodox? Closer. There was a meeting last month in Egypt between the two Orthodox families, and it was supposed to be a meeting to explain the update about what happened with the Christological agreements since 1989 and 1990. And there was some positive steps moving forward. At the very least, we were able to get them to meet, which hadn't happened in many years. And thank God it was in Egypt and was His Holiness Pope Tewodros. It was a big accomplishment that they met. Now we are reconciling the Eastern Orthodox with the Eastern Orthodox. We're trying to do this. And they're supposed to be in community with each other. They're not in community with each other. And we also have problems within the Oriental Orthodox family. We're trying to reconcile the different groups, whether Ethiopia or like there's a lot of problems. So right now, thank God is using the Coptic Church and other churches to help this reconciliation. But when you talk about the Christological agreements, right now, it's not really on it's not the focus, unfortunately. It should be. And so we pray that they do make that shift. Once that becomes the focus of the discussion, then I can tell you, are we closer or not? But I believe that there are some improvements because the people that were resisting the Christological agreements, there's much less resistance. And there's more resistance in other areas, and that's what we are working for. So it still needs prayer, still needs fasting, still needs asking, and so may God work, because it is one of the final things that we need to do. Thank you very much. I think we can pray. You have final announcements? Anything else? Okay, we can pray. Make us, O Lord, worthy to pray with all thanksgiving. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy kingdom. Oh, be done. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who lead us not into temptation, but deliver us. Now may the love of God the Father, the grace of His only begotten Son, of God and Savior Jesus Christ, and the gift of the Holy Spirit be with you, those who should go in peace, peace of the Lord be with you. Thank you.
So if anyone is interested of the recording of today's session, please scan this QR code. It will take you to the link with the recording for all days session with His Grace Bishop Carlos. Scan the QR code. It has the link to the recording for today's session. Spiritual thing.
How are you? How have you been? Good. Don't worry, anytime. Sure. Welcome. Oh, okay, yeah, and the time when we were going? Oh, it's a long time ago.
But now
In 2003. Tomorrow. What's your name?
Again, I see
Oh, so, I mean, he's talking about agreement, but also, of course, according to the will of God.
because there's no qualification
I know.
in that sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, how is it to us? I mean, there's so many people that agree and like really didn't happen, wishes didn't. I mean,
No, it's definitely not absolute. But let me look at the word for agree, and anything.
yeah, this is what like puzzled me for years. It's like how
1823?
yeah. If I think it's
Just send me the verse again? Okay. I will try to find.
Just take a quick photo and send it to you so you remember who I am when I text you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Go on.
Okay, thank you. You're staying?
I'm leaving. Am I able to get this? Oh, we have to talk? Sure. Yeah?
I had the meeting at 3.
Sure.
I was supposed to be around. I'm not sure. Let me see if they're okay.
So, سيدنا هياخد tour في the new building, Sunday school building. Whoever is interested to see the new Sunday school building, please join us. We'll give you a tour in the building.
We'll just have a little something. It's like no program, but
Good.
the program that you can take pictures
Okay.
with the kids.
Starting 6:30.
7:30.
Where did I put my phone? Did they grab it? It was right here. That's Jimmy. He might have been. He might have put it in the bag.
Who has your bag? Public?
Make sure.
No public. Should I tell him to bring it back?
Yes. Please.
That's strange.
I was going to call, I have to check with Ibn David because
Pardon?
لو Yes,